The next one is fairly recent, and it requires a little bit of a preface. My father was a full-blood Kiowa, and he told me that when he was about 8 years old, he lived with his parents in Oklahoma. They had a little homestead there, and it was a time when the Kiowa people were they were defeated, and they had very little hope. They were in a state of depression, but they visited each other frequently. And there was one man in particular whose name was Koi Kanhodl, which means dragonfly. Dragonfly used to come. He lived about 15 miles from my grandparents' home. And he had no car, of course. No one did in those days, or very few people. But he went around on horseback. And he lived at a place called Rainy Mountain. And he was a holy man. He had at Rainy Mountain a tree that was his tree, and he prayed to it all the time. And when he ventured out to visit, he donned his finery, buckskin, and he wore his hair in braids, and he was a rather good-looking man. There is one photograph of him that I know. And he came to my grandparents' house, and in the proper way of a Kiowa visit, he stayed for several days at a time. And he was always welcome. But my father, who was about 8 years old, was a little bit afraid of Dragonfly, because Dragonfly was an idiosyncratic man and a holy man. He was very serious in what he did and what he said. So my father, at the age of 8, would get up before daylight, and he would go outside and hide around a corner of the house, because he knew that Dragonfly was going to come out, and he wanted to see him. He wanted to see what he did. And sure enough, as dawn was near, Dragonfly would come out of the house. He had painted his face, and he had prepared himself. He went out on the east side of the house. There's a little mound that is still there. And he would stand on that mound, and he would wait for the sun to break the skyline. But just before it did, he would pray. With his arms outstretched, he would pray it out of the ground. And I've always been grateful to Dragonfly for bringing the sun up. If he hadn't done it, I don't know that it would have been done. And so we may all be in his debt. It's kind of funny, isn't it? You're supposed to laugh a little bit. Maybe it's not funny. So this piece is called Dragonfly to the Sun. Great One, great giver of life and well-being, I lift my old arms in bold entreaty. Rise and flood the land with light. Rise and touch the faces of your people. I entreat you, give us one more day, and one more, and then one more. I lift my old arms in bold entreaty. Great One, with respect I have breathed a smoke. I have wreathed my words in wisps of smoke. So it is that they are made clean and strong. With respect I have painted my face. From my face come words of sacred color. So it is they may be strong and beautiful. I lift my old arms in bold entreaty. Great One, on the mountain you dance in whispering waters. In the bear's tracks you pierce the darkness, and you splinter among the limbs of pines. The deer and the badger trace the air of your path, the arc of your path. The prairie grasses tremble in your presence, and now, in the dawn appearing, I summon you. I lift my old arms in bold entreaty. Oh, that's Dragonfly's poem.